the big difference from a year ago when these two teams matched up is that Kevin Durant is now at Golden State. And interestingly enough, he sat down for a fairly long interview with The Vertical, part of Yahoo Sports NBA coverage, and was asked, what would a ring mean for you? Now I'm going to read this word for word, okay? This was his response when asked, what would a ring mean for you? Quote, it wouldn't mean my life was complete. I've got a life I want to lead, and I've got a lot of bleep I want to achieve. So if I win a ring, it would be fun to experience that moment when the buzzer sounds and embracing my teammates in the locker room and all that stuff that comes with it. But after that, what's next? That's how I look at it. What's next for me? But it's that high. It's that 2-3 week high. I can tell. You can tell when teams win a championship. I saw last year the Cavs, they all went to Vegas. They all hung out in Vegas for a night. But that 2 week high, I want to experience that. But it's not going to complete me at all. As far as being a person or what life is all about, at the end of the day, it's going to be another basketball milestone that I reach if it happens. We'll see. But if I don't do it, I'm not going to ball up in my room and not come out. I'm going to work on my game and enjoy myself. End quote. There's so much to break down about this response here. For a moment, it seems like Durant has terrific perspective, right? It seems like a very well-adjusted response. There's so much more to life, big picture, than just basketball or just winning. And I get that. But first of all, what was the reason and the point of leaving Oklahoma City to join the Warriors? Think about that. It doesn't take long to win a championship, right? That's the whole point of him going there. And I've criticized him for taking the easy way out, joining a 73-win team that's been to the finals 2 times in a row already. If you can't beat them, join them. And based on that, wouldn't you expect him to say that this is his ultimate goal, is to win a championship? That it is important because that's what he and his teammates have worked hard to accomplish, right? Like Steph Curry came out yesterday or the day before when asked about parity in the league, and those who have been critical of the fact that it's the Cavs and the Warriors and they've kind of steamrolled their opponents en route to a 12-0 postseason for Golden State and a 12-1 postseason for Cleveland. And he said, hey, that's insulting to us. I mean, we've worked hard to do this. It's not like we just go out there and it's easy. Like, we've worked hard to get to this point. It's not easy to go to 3 straight finals on either side of the equation. And so based on that, like if Durant's been a part of that, you would think that when asked this question that, yeah, it is important to him and his teammates. That's the ultimate goal for them. To me, when you read those quotes, it gives the impression that whether the team wins or not, it means more to his teammates and the fans than it does to him. Like that's the part I don't quite understand. It also sounds like he's creating an excuse if they don't win. Like he's giving himself an out. Like he is kind of giving you a disclaimer. Hey, there's more to life than winning or losing. I'll move on. I'll continue playing basketball if I win or if I lose. And if I lose, then, I've got a lot of goals in life. This type of attitude, whether right or wrong, doesn't vibe in the sports culture that we live in today, right? Where now we seem to determine the pecking order of greatness based on championships that you've won, whether it be MJ, Kobe, LeBron, Magic, Bird, and so on within the context of basketball, or every year in football. The NFL season rolls around, and we're talking about the great quarterbacks. That's what we do. It's all within the context of Super Bowls. Can you imagine any of the game's greats ever saying that it wouldn't be a big deal if they lost on the championship stage? I just can't fathom that. Now, there have been different guys in the league, right? There have been like the Dennis Rodmans of the world where you're like, yeah, he probably has more interest elsewhere. Like the Ricky Williams of the world. We saw it up close and personal down here where, yeah, he loved playing football, but that wasn't the end-all be-all for him. In both of those contexts, like Rodman was the third of 3 stars, and he was, down a couple of notches behind a Scottie Pippen and a Michael Jordan. Like nobody was relying on Rodman to win the championship in the sense that he was the lead guy. And Ricky Williams, nobody looks at the running back situation and says, hey, if that running back doesn't lead his team to a Super Bowl, then, that's going to be a big knock on his legacy. It's all about the quarterbacks. In the NBA, it's all about the superstars. And Kevin Durant is a superstar. And so we finally have the dream matchup that we've been anticipating since Durant joined Golden State last summer. And now he's claiming it's not the end of the world for him if he doesn't win a championship? Like, come on. Who's he trying to kid here? Seriously. I don't know if he's just saying this as a defense mechanism or if he wants to provide a big picture perspective or if he's just being honest and this is how he truly feels, which I highly doubt. I highly doubt that. But I wouldn't want that guy in my locker room if it is how he truly feels. That's not the mentality of a great player. We've had so much talk about Michael Jordan this time of the year, every year, especially this year. And put aside the skill level, the athleticism, the work ethic, etc. To me, what will always separate MJ from everyone else was his ruthless, competitive nature. He absolutely hated to lose. He would will his teams to win. He would win at all costs. That was his mentality. Losing would eat at him like no other thing in the world. You know, in some ways, you could argue that for Michael Jordan, I mean, he was crazy about it, right? And that when you look at his Hall of Fame speech, I thought that was an instance in which many criticized him and saying, oh, well, you know, he should have been more humble and he should have been bringing this up and that up. But that's what made him great. He holds grudges. He still is upset about the guy who beat him out for the freshman team in high school when he got cut. He's considered the greatest player of all time. He's still mad about that. I just look back, and again, it's not a fair comparison in general, but I'm thinking the greats of the great. And Kevin Durant has the skill level to be a great player in the league's history. But there are no MJ quotes in which he says that losing a title wouldn't be the end of the world, that life would just go on. And guess what? Michael Jordan never lost in the NBA Finals when he appeared. He went 6 for 6. He wasn't going to let that happen. Kevin Durant is a great talent, and he's arguably the second best player in the league behind LeBron James. So I don't want anybody to interpret my comments as a slight at his skill level or on him. But these comments, he's not saying anything inflammatory here. So I don't want this to be misconstrued like, oh, Kevin Durant, what a terrible person. No, I just think that if you look at the great players in league history and knowing what's at stake in a championship setting, like they don't say things like this. They don't say that, yeah, we'll move on. Winning a championship isn't that big of a deal. My life will continue. But you know what this reminds me of? This is eerily reminiscent of LeBron James' comments after the Heat lost in 2011. It's not exactly the same, but it reminds me of it because they lose to the Mavericks. He received heavy criticism because he didn't play well. I mean, he was a shadow of himself in that series, and we all remember that vividly. Remember what he said. Quote, all the people that was rooting on me to fail, at the end of the day, they have to wake up tomorrow and have the same life that they had before they woke up today. They have the same personal problems they had today. I'm going to continue to live the way I want to live and continue to do the things that I want to do with me and my family and be happy with that. They can get a few days or a few months or whatever the case may be. I'm being happy, but not only myself, but the Miami Heat not accomplishing their goal. But they have to get back to the real world at some point, end quote. Remember, he took a lot of heat for that. Essentially, he's like, hey, I'm sitting here on my pedestal. I'm making millions of dollars. I'm a superstar. And all you peasants down there, at least this is the way it was interpreted, go back to your everyday lives. And I'm still, living the life of a lavish lifestyle with a big house and the whole deal. Now, a couple days later, in fairness, James in the exit interviews backed down from those statements and said, essentially apologized and said, hey, that wasn't what I meant. But I think the point is this, that Durant's going through a similar process as LeBron. Like LeBron, before coming to Miami, had never been the villain, never been the bad guy. He'd always been a guy that everybody had praised, coming out of high school, going straight to the NBA. There never been real valid reasons to criticize him. The moment that the decision happened and then they had the big celebration in American Airlines Arena, it was not one, not two, not three. Suddenly, everybody, national mainstream media, critical of LeBron and his every move. And Durant hasn't been used to any criticism either, for the most part. He's been largely liked and praised as well. So this is a new feeling and experience for him where not everyone is giving him the benefit of the doubt. I think LeBron tried in that 2011 season, but ultimately didn't embrace the role of villain very well. And Durant may be the same way. But bottom line, my big takeaway from this, Kevin Durant, any of these guys who are at that superstar level, come on, don't tell us it's not a big deal whether you win a championship or not, especially your first championship. Because whether they want to admit it or not, they all know that there is a ton of scrutiny around whether you win a championship, right? We're talking about Chris Paul right now, and everybody, the first thing you bring up, like, he's never won a championship. Heck, the last 5 years in L.A., he hasn't gotten to the conference finals. What's wrong with him? Will that knock him when you're talking about the great point guards of all time? Think Kevin Durant, the rest of the NBA players don't realize that? They do. They might not want to admit it, but to flat out say, not a big deal if we don't win the championship, Doesn't sound fair to his teammates either, does it? Like if that guy's in your locker room, I mean, maybe he says completely different things behind the scenes. Maybe this is a front. But when you hear this, if you're like Klay Thompson and Steph Curry and Draymond Green, like I can't imagine Draymond Green's going to let him get away with this, right? I mean, Draymond Green, he reminds me of one of those ultimate competitors. It doesn't matter what it takes. Heck, he'll kick you in the crotch if he has to try to win. Well, he might get suspended for that, but you get my point. I mean, knowing the culture that we live in, sports culture that is, there's so much scrutiny and so much pressure on these quote-unquote stars to win the ultimate championship. And in this case, for Kevin Durant, he's been in the league for 10 years, and what's the only knock you can have against him? That he hasn't won a championship, right? That he failed in his first opportunity when he was with Oklahoma City, but you could make the excuse, hey, he was young. His teammates were young, and they've learned from that, and they've gotten better. And yeah, he's had some injury history, but ultimately, if he's going to go down as one of the greats, he's got to win a championship, at least one. We put a major emphasis on that, whether right or wrong. And for Durant to say it doesn't matter just seems very, very odd.